Welcome to the 26th Annual Writers' Symposium by the Sea at Point Loma Nazarene University. I'm Dean Nelson. I'm the journalism faculty at the university, and today we're introducing a new segment to the symposium. We've never done a short film festival before, but we're doing one this year, student-run, that will be judged by our student-run creative arts journal called the Driftwood, also working in conjunction with the Department of Communication Studies and the Department of Literature, Journalism, and Modern Languages. We took the top 3 films that were submitted for this festival, and our own film expert from the LJWL department, James Wicks, will be interviewing those directors after we see their films. You'll get to see the films now, followed by the interviews, and I hope you enjoy this new segment of the Writers' Symposium where we celebrate student creativity in storytelling.
The United Nations estimates that there are over 70 million forcibly displaced people in the world right now. Almost 26 million of these individuals are refugees, half of whom are under the age of 18. This global crisis leaves the international community with an urgent decision to make. Will refugees be invested in as dignified individuals? My name is Sladich and I'm a university student in California. I'm passionate about global issues such as the refugee crisis, especially refugee integration, which includes honoring freedom of religion and religious belief. The reason why I'm so invested in these issues is because I am the granddaughter of an immigrant. My grandfather fled the Iranian Revolution in 1979 to the United States.
I met Sage in San Diego. We were roommates in university our freshman year. In 2015, my family began working with the thousands of refugees fleeing from the Middle East to Europe due to war and violence. Along the road, I met many journalists, neurosurgeons, teachers, professors, artists, and many other skilled and successful professionals. I think the most shocking thing to me was that as they settled into their new host countries, they found it nearly impossible to find any jobs fitting their expertise. I met a man named Joseph and his family at a refugee camp in Greece. Joseph started a school from the ground up teaching English, American culture, and British culture to youth. More than a year later, after our first meeting in Greece, they were settled in Europe. Joseph said that he was unable to find a job. My dad asked him why he was seeking work when the German government provides a stipend to refugees. Without hesitation, he answered that he preferred to work over receiving charity. He had been a successful man, after all, an English professor and a businessman. But now, with nobody willing to utilize his expertise, his last option was to drive taxis. I've heard so many stories and met so many people like Joseph, resilient, able to navigate cultures, committed to hard work and personal dignity.
Ultimately, it is vital to include refugees, migrants, and minorities, regardless of where they come from or what they believe, especially when it comes to the economic sector. However, many face discrimination when they try to find employment in their new nation because of their background, culture, or religion. So not only is extending the right of freedom of belief into the workplace good for refugees, but it's also shown to be good for business and the economy as a whole. When you bring people together with different backgrounds and perspectives, it stimulates creative problem solving and new innovative strategies. It also encourages values of compassion, generosity, and tolerance within local communities. Employers retain talent when their employees feel free to bring their full self to work. Business leaders play a critical role in deciding whether or not refugees and minorities will be invested in as positive contributors to the economy.
It breaks my heart that in a world full of such beauty, creativity, and diversity, we allow the voice of fear to rob people from contributing their full potential.
So my question for business leaders around the world, for the sake of a prosperous society and economic growth, will you support equality and freedom of belief for everyone?
mom said I should smile with my eyes because one day I might not have my teeth. I didn't know one day would be so soon.
We're deep.
Safety, split up and quit round into the brother who betrayed you. Pull back the bolt, pull back the bolt, pull back the bolt, pull back the bolt, pull the pin. Deadly the rain struck to your waist.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. And you would naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes. You would have every kind of pleasure, you see. And after several nights, you would say, well, that was pretty great. But now let's have a surprise. Let's have a dream which isn't under control. Well, something is going to happen to me that I don't know what it's going to be. Then you would get more and more adventurous, and you would make further and further out gambles as to what you would dream. And finally, you would dream where you are now.
often with many fields of study, it's a matter of being intelligent or being considered intelligent is primarily memorizing facts and being able to regurgitate those. All of those things have their place, and obviously they're really important, but creative intelligence, the intelligence required to make a piece of art, is just a different kind of thinking, and it's a different kind of intelligence. And people that are not invested in doing this and don't have any experience doing it just don't understand what it takes to do what we do.
As a child, it feels like play. We assume that it's childlike in some way or simple, that somehow it's not as serious as a lot of the other sciences and math-related fields as they grow up. But because it is a language, like, it can be really rigorous. And I think for those of us that have really chosen it as a profession and as a way of life, we understand that it's actually quite sophisticated.
I've always seen art as something easy because I always think of just painting, drawing anything that you see in front of you. And that's kind of how I grew up in a society where, like, kind of people you surround yourself who aren't art majors and stuff like that. It's kind of like me just putting myself out there again, saying, like, you just put whatever you think on a canvas. They don't really tell you, like, the depth of just how it's more than just painting with the brush.
People would say art majors have it easier, probably because just the way that art was introduced to us from such a young age. We associate art with, like, coloring, books, markers, and crayons. Like, there was never really depth behind it. Whereas when we learned about science, I was interested when we would have a whole class dedicated to it, compared to art where it was like a form of Greek.
Often people that don't do as well with, I hate to use the word traditional, but with areas of study such as math and science and language, those people that struggle gravitate towards the arts because there's something there that allows them to express themselves, to feel valued. Maybe they're a pictorial thinker, or I know for me, I'm a visual learner. And so when I experience things visually, I retain them really well.
For an artist, we thrive in abstract thinking, right? Making connections to things and between things, connections between ideas that seem to be either opposing or seem to be just so far apart from each other. And that's what we do as artists. We make these connections, and then we find the beauty and the poetry in these connections that so many people in other fields are never required to do. They're not required to exercise that kind of thinking. So therefore, they don't have an appreciation or an understanding.
When I was in, like, kindergarten, we'd use, like, coloring time as a form of break. They would say it doesn't use a lot of your brain. So I think just with that stigma, like, oh, we color in our free time, or we do arts and crafts in our free time, it's kind of associated with not a lot of brain usage, when in reality, I think it does. I would say it just uses a different part of their brain. They're using a way to express their knowledge through their art, literally. It's good for them to read, like, history, the different types of arts, but the way that they can truly retain it is through their expression, the way they express through their art.
It's like every other major. There's difficulties, there's some areas that are easy, and there's some areas where you're just like, I might have to contemplate choosing another major. They're gonna look into the different forms of how can I make that 3D or 2D or three-dimensional with shadows, you know? There's, like, different levels. I feel like with art, the way they retain that is just they study different art forms. They study the way different artists chose to do, you know, a particular pattern. And as art majors, like, you know, they also do their part in searching everything that they possibly can when they have come up with something creative, you know, patterns, shapes. You can't just be like, oh, I created this pattern. You know, it's like, where did you get that from? And how did you implement all those resources into the specific piece of art form that you do? So from researching and doing it repetitively, just like as any other major does, and studying the material, learning the material, that it becomes engraved in your head.
Is there money in making artwork? That's a great question. The short answer is yes, but it is, you know, the idea of the starving artist, honestly, it's not any more true than the starving salesman or the starving real estate agent. It takes a lot of work in any career to be successful at it and to do well financially and to support yourself in doing something that you love.
Honestly, it's a big risk factor, but that comes with every job. It is more commonly to hear about art not making as much money, but then you also see people making millions of dollars worth of art. So it's like kind of the extremes.
yeah, like art is everywhere. So the phone case that you buy, the shirt that you buy, the shoes with the weird drawings, if you make something that someone likes or a company likes or just about anybody likes it, then yeah, I feel like that's worth a currency.
There is the kind of idea that artists are all starving, and there's plenty of opportunities, whether it's public art, whether it's showing in galleries and selling work through the gallery system, whether it's teaching, whether it's, you know, both in academia or even just private teaching. There's plenty of opportunities. There's probably not as many opportunities to become extravagantly wealthy. You know, even if you're a movie director or something like that, the chances of becoming like Steven Spielberg level, you know, is tricky, but it's the same in all professions. Initially, people that go into the arts may not make as much as people in business or other careers that have direct paths into a way of making money, but that over time, people working in the arts catch up. And then the cool thing is that their job satisfaction levels are off the charts, you know, because they enjoy what they do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this year's Writers Symposium by the Sea. My name is James Wicks. I'm a professor here at Point Loma Nazarene University, and it's a great pleasure to interview the first place winning film in the category of short shorts in this year's inaugural short film festival that Point Loma brought to us by the Driftwood. And so it's a great pleasure to be here today and to introduce the film, The Freedom to Succeed.
Hello, I am Lydia Sunberg. I am a sophomore at Point Loma Nazarene, and I study international studies. And I worked on this film with Sage.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sage Tabor. I'm also a sophomore international studies major, and Lydia and I were roommates last year and decided to make a film together. Yeah.
This is fantastic, and we're making this work online. We have a little bit of a delay with working through Zoom, but this is working just fine, and it's great to meet you. I was wondering if you could talk about where this topic originated from, namely the topic of your film.
Awesome. Yeah, I grew up actually overseas in Eastern Europe, in Bulgaria for 10 years, and then Budapest, Hungary for 8. And about in 2015, there was just this massive migration of refugees from the Middle East, and my family worked very hands-on with that demographic in refugee camps, and then further following them as they invited us into their homes that they settled in. And so I have always just been really excited to learn as much as I can about refugees and their experience, and then hopefully amplify whatever they're wanting, whatever stories they're wanting to be told. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I think we just really connected. My parents have a background in missions as well. And I always loved hearing your stories about how the European refugee crisis impacted Lydia. And so this film competition came up that was looking for submissions, and I was like, you have amazing stories, and I have a little bit of film background, so let's try to tell some important stories together.
Yeah, I'm so glad you submitted this film to multiple locations. Could you remind us the location or the organization that initially prompted this documentary?
For sure, yeah. So there's 2 organizations. Empower Women Media is a NGO that focuses on training and networking with women in the Middle East. And then this other group is the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation that works to incentivize religious freedom around the world through business. And so those two NGOs came together and did a film competition to raise awareness for themes around religious freedom and such. And so we saw the prompts and said, we have some stories to tell.
So 2 NGOs came together, and then 2 Point Loma students came together in response. Could you describe the compilation of your film? Where did this footage come from? It looks like you have some stock footage, but also firsthand interviews. Just explain how the film came together.
Yeah, so actually this film was made during the whole COVID quarantine when it was all very new. And so things were really very closed down. And so I think our initial hope was to get some like raw footage and some real footage. But just because of the reality of our world, it turned into like finding a lot of stock footage online and then conducting our own interviews, like personally telling our stories. And so it's just like a mix of me sitting at home in Budapest in my living room with the camera on, and then Sage sitting at her home in Orange County, and then just finding different stock footage. And also, as my family was working with refugees and on the road, we took video and photos. And so there is some of that personal look into what it was really like and what my family experienced as we were with these people. So it's a great mesh of things from all around the world and of different people. So
yeah, truly a transnational film. Lydia, thanks for that explanation. Sage, how did you know when the film was done? How did you know when the compilation had reached the point where you were ready to submit it?
So yes, I would say definitely our original intention was to film it together. The deadline was June, and we just kind of kept pushing it back, and then COVID happened. We're like, okay, let's just still do this. So definitely some things were a little bit harder than I imagined. As you said, building a film kind of transnationally. And this was my first real experience in video work as well. So I just kept working with it. And my mom has some experience in video production too. And so we just went back and forth until we finally thought we had a finished product.
Till it all fell into place. Do you think that films can make a difference in the world?
Absolutely. I just think when I hear this question, I think of the rise of social media and just how much media plays into our lives, all different forms. And I think like, wow, videos, if you're passionate about something, like a video can reach more people than you probably can reach on your own with your own mouth and your with a group of people. So I think videos have so much power to reach demographics all around the world, no matter of like background or where you're from, it'll reach you because it's on the internet for most people. So I think videos have a great power to change the world.
Yeah, and I would second that also with saying just the power of distribution with things like Driftwood. Like now tons of Point Loma students might see this, which is amazing. And with this other competition we did, they show like UN level organizations the films as well.
Yeah, that's great. And thanks for giving us that kind of inspiration, not only with your film, but where you hope it will go and how you see its potential influence. It's very moving to watch it and to learn that from you. Any parting words for your audience and for those watching your film?
I think just to say, we all have experiences, and there are people around us that are hurting and wishing and hoping for people to speak up for them in ways, or speak up with them, I guess I should say instead, and amplify their voices. So I guess just to hone into your community, what does it look like to listen to the voices around you and not triumph over them, but to say, I will stand with you and amplify your needs and amplify your wants to my community. And hopefully we can gain some traction and help you out in ways that are dignifying and just bring some life into a community that's asking for it.
Absolutely. And the last thing I would just say is go for it. If you're thinking about making something, neither of us were qualified at all. We didn't spend $1 on the film. Yeah. We just used old equipment and video editing software that I had and tons of free B-roll. And we made a film that's being distributed. So you don't need any experience. You don't need any money. You can just go for it and make something new.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you so much for the chance to listen to both of you, and also for the chance to listen to the voices that you amplify and dignify in your film. And it's a great pleasure chatting with you, and thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Professor James Wicks at Point Loma Nazarene University. And as part of our Writers Symposium this year, we have our first short film festival contributed by students across campus who submitted their films. And it's a great honor to be here today to interview our second place winner in the short shorts category for the film Masked Smiles.
Hi, I'm Sierra, and I'm a sophomore media comm major.
Yeah, very good to have you. And let's just jump in with some questions about your film. We've had a chance to screen it, and I'm just curious where this idea came from. What was really the genesis of this project?
Yeah, so it was originally a project I created for a class last semester, and the idea really just came from everything that was going on at the time. It was still kind of the beginning of quarantine, so it was all new. It was also an idea that came to me from a quote that I heard on TikTok. So
what was the quote that was the inspiration for you?
The quote was actually the only words that's in my short film, and it's my mom always told me to smile with my eyes because one day I might not have any teeth.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a wonderful introduction to the film. I'm on a technical note. May I just ask, how did you do that shot reverse shot with the mirror and the sticker? The mother's note on the mirror. How did you pull that off?
Yeah, I had my mom write the note because her handwriting is very good, and so I put it on this mirror that I had, and then just aimed the camera in that direction. So yeah.
And would you mind introducing the lead actor in your film?
Yeah, the lead actor in my film is my best friend Nina. She's a freshman at SDSU.
Fantastic. It seemed like one of the challenges of your film was to stay focused on one concept and analyze it from a couple of different perspectives so that we can thoroughly understand the idea that you were exploring. Was there anything you had to cut, or was there a secondary idea that you wanted to force in, but it didn't stay in the final cut?
I think the hardest part was the part where there's multiple scenes of her wearing a mask at different locations.
Yes.
And I think just the hardest part was where to film those locations, like what backgrounds wouldn't take away from her. So that was like a challenge.
To keep her in the forefront rather than the background being distracting. And I imagine then you had all kinds of lighting concerns that you were trying to deal with as well to keep that same theme working.
Yeah.
Very good. So what did you learn about, actually I'll just, put this question into two parts. Was there something that you learned about filmmaking in this process?
I think honestly what I learned was that there doesn't have to be such a big motive behind a film, even a short film. I just took a small quote that I heard and I wanted to turn it into something visual. So I think I just learned that there doesn't always have to be such a huge idea behind a film.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Even, it doesn't need a Hollywood explosion and a car chase. Really, the emotion is the cause and effect in this piece. And I think it translates into the visual imagery very nicely. How about yourself, Sierra? Was there something that you learned about yourself through this process? And, really thinking about your film, it's going to be a document of COVID during this time. And as, part of our inaugural film festival, we'll come back to this later and realize you've really provided a snapshot and glimpse into the sentiment that many of us are sharing right now. Is there something that you learned about yourself through this process as well?
I think going along the same lines of not having to have such a huge idea behind something.
Yeah.
I learned that I actually was like very hesitant to make the film because I thought does it really have like a story behind it? Like, will people really understand? So I think I learned that if I have an idea, then I should just create it, and you never know what it could become.
I think that's great advice for aspiring filmmakers as well. So thanks so much. Any other closing words for us?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Congratulations. And it's such a pleasure to interview, and look forward to your future filmmaking as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. It's a great pleasure to be with you and introduce our filmmaker that won the best film in the short film category for films over 5 minutes in length. My name is James Wicks. I'm a professor at Point Loma Nazarene University, and it's a great pleasure to be part of this year's Writers Symposium by the Sea. And as part of this, the Driftwood, our publication at Point Loma that students produce and publish all kinds of student material. This is the first year that they have a short film competition. And it's fitting that our film this year is By the Sea, just as the Writers Symposium title entails. And so I'm James Wicks and happy to start this interview.
My name's Ethan. I'm a sophomore at Point Loma, and I'm like super stoked to be here. I love the school and I love all the people here, so this is great.
Ethan, yeah, great being with you here. And your winning film this year is entitled Deep in Mexico. I was wondering, as we get started here, could you describe for us the inspiration for your film?
Well, Chandler Sieverts, who's now a senior, he went to Mexico. He told me he was going to Mexico, and I was like, oh, dude, I'd love to come and film it. And he's like, oh, we already have someone filming, but we'll see if we can go again. And I was like, okay, no worries. And then 2 weeks later, he's like, hey, we're going again. Do you want to come film? And I'm like, absolutely. And then we go on the trip, and then we come back, and I've been wanting to like make surf films like probably for the last, I don't know, three years or so. I started out in photography, but now I'm switching over to video. So that's also the direction I want to head for a career, is like making surf movies.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the inspiration for it. That's like my first like long or decently long like short film that I made. So I just wanted to like prove myself and get out there, you know.
What kind of camera did you use? And did you have a tripod set up on the beach? It sounds like some of these ideas you must have been planning for a while, and this was really your chance to show your preparation.
Yeah, I have a Canon 80D, which isn't the best for video. It's 1080p and 60 frames a second, but it works. And then I had a tripod, but it was really shaky. I just got a new one, so that the clips will be more stable now. It'll look better, but for that worked. And then I also have a tape recorder camera. It's a camcorder from 2001 that I got for Christmas. I didn't get it for Christmas, but I started using it around December.
Okay.
So my new films will have footage from that, which will look super cool.
Yeah, cool. So maybe some B-roll coming through there with the 2001 camera. Let's go then from the imagery to the sound design. You know, there's a moment about 5 minutes into the film where it seems like the film stops being a surf film. You have this audio, you have this voiceover narration. The film really becomes cinematic and almost cinemagic once you start integrating these ideas. If you could just talk for a moment about the sound design and that quotation specifically. How did you know that was going to fit with this particular surf trip and this particular project?
Well, when we were sitting in Chandler's house editing, the people that went on the trip was Chandler and his brother, and they have another friend that lives at the house. They're all from Dana Point, which is like the area that I would go surf in or go take photos in. Okay. So I kind of knew those kids a little bit before coming to Loma. Yeah. But now that we're all there, we were just all sitting around editing, and Carter, which is Chandler's brother, he says we should try and use some kind of quotation for this cool B-roll we have. Yeah. And so he just like, you said, here, try this. And we put it in there and we're like, this could work.
It just fits. And then it just starts becoming about a dream. And I know this is a dream for you to make the film, but it seems to work on a number of different levels. You know, that makes me leads me to this question, which is, you know, the film isn't then only about surfing. It's about following dreams. It's about nature. You have, you know, the last shot in the film is an unridden wave, which just gives, you know, the primacy to the place and just the location. What, you know, how would you like, you know, people that don't surf, like a non-surfing audience, what would you like for them to take away from the film as you've integrated these seemingly larger themes?
Well, I mean, mostly like exploration, not just about surfing, but just go explore and like look where you are. Because like Mexico is a very cool place, and I was super grateful to be there. And like I've stayed in Hawaii for a little bit, and that was an eye-opening experience too. So just go out and explore and travel.
And how about for the surfing audience itself? What were kind of some of your inspirations with the surf films that have influenced you, and what do you want surfers to get out of this film?
Well, for inspiration, like I think Dane Reynolds is one of the coolest surfers out there, and what he's doing now with like Former, I think that's super rad, and I want to head in that direction. Like even work for him would be a goal of mine. But as far as like what surfers should take out, you should probably try and surf down in Mexico. Deep in Mexico is pretty cool waves.
Well, it's inspiring on all kinds of levels. Then just cinematically, the way it thinks, you know, outside the box, and you know, your use of the inset images. Before we close, I got to ask you about that. How did that come about? In that final third of the film, you start experimenting with other kinds of visual techniques.
It's funny because like when we were editing, we would all be sitting on the couch for like 4, 5, 6 hours at a time. And that time that when I put those inset images, I was working on my own in my dorm, and I thought this would be cool. So I put it in there, and then I showed up at their house, and I was like, guys, look what I did. And they're like, we should do that. That looks super good.
And then it made it it made it into the final version. Hey,
Yeah.
It's such a pleasure talking with you. Ethan McKenzie, a sophomore here at Point Loma. Any parting words for us?
Just go out and explore and enjoy it and follow your dreams, because you never know what could happen.
Thanks so much, Ethan. Pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, everyone, to this year's Writers Symposium by the Sea. And we have our inaugural short film competition this year brought to us by our publication on campus, the Driftwood. And we're here with our second place winner for the film, The Art Major Stigmas. My name is James Wicks, and I'm a professor here at Point Loma Nazarene University.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Sladich. I am a 5th year. My major is visual arts, and I'm the creator of the Art Major Stigmas.
So, Laura, what was the motivation for your film?
The motivation for my film was, as a visual arts major, I constantly get asked like, oh, so what are you going to do with that when you graduate? Or like, how are you going to make any money? And I felt like I just needed to address and show to the public and those who are trying to maybe go to Point Loma in the future that like, if you want to be an art major, it's going to be okay. You will find a job. It's perfect.
Yeah, as a literature major, as an undergrad myself, I often dealt with those same kind of questions. And so it was really interesting to see how you approached this visually and you know, you made a documentary that really fits into the rhetorical form. It looks like you want to persuade your audience to a certain point of view. What do you think would be the ideal response to your documentary, Laura?
The ideal response to my film is that literally anything is art. It can be interior design. It can be the chair that you're sitting in right now. Literally anything and everything is art. And you're just the creator of that, and you might be the next innovator.
Do you think that, as you've had all these conversations with, it seems like with both friends and instructors, and as you combine all of these different responses in this compilation film, a film with a whole bunch of interviews, how did you go about selecting the participants in this documentary that could perhaps most effectively show these kind of stereotypes and respond to them? How did you go about selecting your interviewees?
All right. I selected two of my professors that I have attended class with, and they have told me multiple stories of how once they graduated, what they did as an art major, what they've accomplished. And what I wanted to make sure with like my student interviews over here is I wanted to make sure that they were like bio or like basically the science majors, the mathematical majors or mathematicians, and just really showcase like what they think what art is, but then them actually experiencing how art is actually like done and all that.
Did you have a chance when you were making the documentary to talk to both camps? Did you let them know, for example, you know, this is what my professors have said, what do you think about that? And then did you ever bring, you know, what your classmates and friends and their perspectives, did you bring those to your professors? So did you work as a kind of intermediary with this dialogue that you show in the final version of your film?
I wanted to do just a completely like blank slate. I wanted to, wow. I had like 20 questions and I wanted to get everybody's opinion individually, because I didn't want to like persuade anyone or to lean towards or have them say like what I wanted them to say. It was just more like just pretty much asking them the same basic questions. And I was actually quite surprised that what I thought that the bio majors were gonna say, they actually agreed that like art is a different language. It is very complicated. So I found like that kind of reassuring, like, oh, they see it too. So it was just like that.
Yeah, because it seemed like one of those, you know, an important stigma that you started out with is that there's a kind of a hierarchy, right? And some majors are more sophisticated than others. It sounds like that stereotype was already almost undone, and so you could move on to some of those other ideas that you wanted to explore.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you think this project will evolve into something larger? Is this a snapshot of where you're at now? Or do you see yourself maybe revisiting this, maybe making this into a full 90-minute documentary? Because there's so many angles that you could use to approach this topic.
I would definitely love to like really make this a longer film. I think it would be really more informative, especially for people who are just starting college and especially like those who are really interested in the arts.
Yeah.
Just that reassurance that like no matter what you do, whether if it is bio or whether if it is like arts, visual arts or graphic design, like it'll be totally fine and you'll find a job.
Yeah, no, that's very inspiring actually for incoming students and also just for all of us that want to pursue our passion. And you're someone that's done that, Laura. And so, yeah, it's a great pleasure to you know, be able to enjoy your film as part of this festival. Do you have any parting words for your audience?
Thank you for watching my film. I appreciate it.
And we look forward to seeing your future work as well, Laura. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Just a little heads up about next year's Writers' Symposium 2022. David Brooks from the New York Times, Cornell West from Harvard University, Nadia Boltz-Weber from Denver, Colorado. They'll all be here. They'll be in person. I hope to see you there. Go online, pointloma.edu/writers for more information.